I'm Pastor Scott Griswold, and I'd like to welcome you to Reach the World ASAP, where we focus on world needs and someone who is doing something to help. Suppose fighting suddenly broke out in your country. Perhaps several states or provinces decided to take over the rest, shooting and killing, stealing and pillaging. I can hardly even imagine what it would be like. Suppose it got so bad that 1 out of every 18 people was killed in your neighborhood, in your state, in your country. Imagine if half of the entire population had to flee their homes. It would be like every other household no longer able to live at home. People hiding or trying to travel to a safer part of the country. What would you do? Where would you go? Suppose you knew that many people were fleeing by land and by boat to other countries. Would you risk the bandits on the road and the pirates in the sea? Would you brave the possibility of being turned back at those other countries' borders? How would you decide whether it was safer for your children to go or to stay? This is no imaginary story for the people of Syria. The United Nations has called this the greatest humanitarian emergency of our era. More than 4 years has left 250,000 people dead. That's 1 out of 18 people in their country. No wonder 1 out of 5 people has chosen to flee his or her country. That's 4.5 million people. It's very tough on the way. I listened to a TED Talk by Melissa Fleming that described the journey in an intensely personal and tragic way. It reminded me of the refugees I used to talk to in the refugee camps on Thailand's border who had fled Cambodia. I heard their painful stories of pirate attacks on the open seas, awful hunger, terrible thirst, treacherous journeys through the jungles where they were always afraid that the next step would be on a landmine. It is very hard to flee as a refugee. Many do not survive. When the Syrian refugees arrive in a foreign country, it's not over then either. It's not easy. Many have gone up north towards Europe trying to find a better future. 7,000 arrived in Macedonia, Greece on just one Monday. During 1 month in 2015, 1,000 were crossing the border every single day into Serbia. Everything is confusing. The future is so unclear for them. But there are many people helping. The Seventh-day Adventist Church is among them. In the Adventist Review, I read some of what people are doing. The president of our church's inter-European division, Mario Brito, said, "We are all children of the same Father. This is the time to stick together and to share God's abundant love for each of us." That's the attitude we must all have. But it's more than an attitude. It's action. One church group gave out 2,000 meal kits and drinking water as the refugees poured in. They gave diapers and baby formula to mothers and sanitary towels to help people protect themselves from disease. ADRA, which stands for Adventist Development and Relief Agency, ran an asylum information center to help refugees know where to go and how to get help. They had materials in Arabic, Urdu, Farsi, Pashtun, English, French. They had computers out so people could try to be in touch with family members. Can you imagine the joy of finding out on Facebook that your sister is still alive? The Croatia and Slovenia branches of ADRA collected all kinds of donations and filled a train with 10 tons to help the refugees in other countries. They cooperated with Adria Airways to carry another 2.5 tons by plane for free. In various countries, church members are rallying to help. They're providing breakfast, teaching people German or another language, collecting clothing, and visiting the refugees in those new, old apartments to help them get established and used to life in their country. Some even help them turn a huge monastery flower garden into a vegetable garden. They're teaching nutrition classes, holding knitting groups, and helping them find jobs. But the majority of the Syrian refugees land up in 4 countries: Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, and Turkey. Life is not easy there. 80% of refugee children don't go to school. They want to go, they don't get to go. That's 700,000 Syrian children who will not be in school this year. Zaina is not one of those children. She's a refugee from Syria, along with her mom and dad and her sisters Amara and Nora. They all sleep on mattresses on the concrete floor in a little room in Feinar, Mount Lebanon. Zaina fled her home when the fighting got too bad to stay around. When they got to Lebanon, her parents tried to put them all in the public school. There was no room. They tried another school, And the principal said the same thing, no room. In Lebanon, ADRA has opened a program for the children. 120 precious little ones like Zaina are getting some special education, some counseling for what they've been through, and encouragement and a healthy snack. It's a stopgap measure while they're trying to get them into other schools. Jesus loves those little children. Over in Jordan, a 10-year-old boy named Suleiman misses his home too. A whole year has gone by since he was in school. Some days were very frightening. Some days were just terribly boring. ADRA has a program in Jordan too, and they've been able to help 80 Jordanian schools help the refugees. They bring in school supplies, train the teachers how to help the refugees, make special clubs to help the children. I think that's incredible. Every penny that people are giving is helping this happen. And there are those who remain behind in Syria. 50% of the people in Syria are displaced. They cannot stay in their own houses. They are in tents or some basic structure. Many of these are innocent civilians who do not want any more war. ADRA International tells about Rita. She's an elderly woman. She ought to be resting in a rocking chair, enjoying her grandchildren at the house she herself grew up in. Instead, she had to flee her home empty-handed. The son who took care of her was killed. Rita now lives in an abandoned school. She does have her grandchildren with her, along with several other families that are crowded into that classroom. There is no privacy and very little protection from the long winter nights. Rita said, "There are no doors or windows in the school, and the cold weather gives me frostbite each night. There's only one blanket, and at night my grandchildren and I sometimes warm ourselves by hugging and crying. We left our homes with no clothes and with no hope, and here we are." ADRA Syria gave Rita and her family 4 cozy blankets and some warm winter clothes. I know Jesus loves these precious people. I am sure that your donations are very much needed to continue to help Syrian refugees. That would be very easy to do at adra.org, ADRA.org. I hope you will. Beyond that, I was wondering if some volunteers might be needed over there somewhere to help. Would you be willing to go for a while? I'm sure if you search online and make some contacts, you could find a way in one of those countries that is trying their best to receive them. I went to ADRA International's website. There I found that they are looking for a project manager in Syria to be based at Damascus. That person would find out more of the needs around and the possibilities for helping. They would make proposals and then cooperate with government and non-government leaders. They would find ways to do the things we've been talking about today. Then they would gather a staff and lead them forward to show God's love in that desperately needy place. I read with seriousness the last part of the job description. It is an unaccompanied position. That means you come alone without your family. Safety is not guaranteed. But when is life guaranteed in this world? And why wouldn't we eagerly throw down our lives for the one who died for us? Jesus loves every person in and out of Syria. Maybe you can't do that job. Maybe you're not old enough or qualified. But you can pray for God to raise up that person that is needed now. You can prepare yourself for the next crisis that will surely come. Training, getting ready, being ready to be used by God. Jesus said in Leviticus 19:34 that we must love the stranger as we love ourselves. So let's unite our hearts with the compassionate God who sees and loves people who are in pain the world over. Together, let's reach the world ASAP.